Welcome to a brand new episode of the All Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Steven Min, joined as always by my producer to the stars and co-host, Chris Brito. Chris and I will discuss the upcoming NBA Finals beginning Thursday, plus with the Mavericks and Heat eliminated, what do they need to do to take that next step to get to the NBA Finals next season? Before we get to all that, Chris, my friend, how are you?
Hey, Stevie. Happy to be here on another episode of the All Hoops podcast, as always. We finally made it to the NBA Finals, and, it's been a refreshing year for many reasons because, we're going to have the Celtics, a new young team, potentially be the winners, or we'll have the Warriors and Steph Curry reemerge from the abyss, and they have a chance to also become champions. And maybe this will be the year that Steph Curry becomes Finals MVP. So there's a lot of things to look at here. But let's start with why I think the Celtics could win. I know you feel differently. I know you think that the Warriors are going to win. I like the Celtics because not only did they beat the Warriors twice in the regular season, I know you say it doesn't matter. And I know that I think Steph got injured in one of them.
Marcus Smart injured him, by the way. Let's not sugarcoat that. That might be a thing to watch.
I doubt it. But anyway, I just think that the Celtics really match up well against this whole Warriors team. I think that, the Celtics face a lot more tougher teams in the East than the Warriors did in the West. And obviously the Warriors are a team that's going to rise to the occasion, and they have a lot of firepower. But the Celtics were the best ranked defense since, since what, March, I believe, or February? In any case.
Since the calendar year, so like January 1.
Even better. And I really think that the Celtics just have a lot of weapons there, and they have enough forces to neutralize the Warriors and Steph Curry and the Jordan Pooles of the world. And I think the X factor for the Warriors will probably be someone like Clay. I think if you get consistent shooting from Clay, I think it could lean into the Warriors' favor, but I think it leans a lot into what Clay can produce for this team.
I don't want to poo-poo what the Celtics have done this year. We went into the new year, they were 22-22. They were behind the Knicks, Chris. They're behind the Knicks. And all of a sudden, here they are, best record, I believe, in basketball since January 1st. The defense has been unreal. Jason Tatum's taken a leap. But just the way they executed, or lack of execution, down the stretch in a lot of these games in this Heat series has me worried. I mean, the Heat almost came back in game 7 when, Celtics should have closed the door. And I just think this Warrior team with all their vets, they've done this before. If you get into a late game situation where it's tied at 100 with 5 minutes to go, I trust the Warriors to execute their game plan much better than they do with Boston. And you've talked to me about this throughout this, Miami Heat series. How tough is Boston? And sometimes they look like they're the toughest guys out there. And then other times they look like they're a little weak. And they better be strong to play this incredible Golden State team. And I really believe that we're undervaluing what Golden State has done, because this is a great team. This is not the juggernaut, one of the best teams of all time that we've seen like with them do in the 16, 17, 18 seasons.
I sort of lean. Here's where I think the Celtics can match up really and can make a difference here. I think the Warriors haven't really faced a defensive threat like the Celtics, although the Mavericks are obviously a pretty good one too. And obviously with the things that you mentioned, we've talked about it, and it's one of the reasons why I thought the Heat were going to win the series. But the issue I have with the Celtics is that late game execution. I mean, we saw Miami almost steal game 7. If Jimmy Butler makes that 3, maybe this is a different conversation. I just think Jason Tatum is going to be the best player on the floor between both teams, Curry being right there with him. And I think this is going to be Jason Tatum's time.
I I think that's all fair to say. I agree with you on everything you just said. I just think the Warriors bench, the Warriors depth is just better than the Celtics depth right now. And I don't think it's far enough apart where, it wouldn't shock me if Boston turned that around and Al Horford and Grant Williams and those kind of guys outplayed the Warriors guys, but I don't expect that to happen. I think the key to this series would be Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown has had some monster games in these playoffs, and there's others where you're like, should he really be the one with the ball in his hands down the stretch? He just got to be more consistent. 4 turnovers or more in each of his last 3 games. He had 7 turnovers in game 3. He looks like he just can't dribble the ball. And that's something that has always kind of been an issue for him, but it seems like everyone's kind of noticing it now. And if you don't think the Golden State Warriors with 9 days off have noticed that, with their speed and their shooting, if you turn the ball over 20 times a game against them, it's over. It's just over.
I mean, let's not act like the Warriors protect the ball much better either. I mean, that was one of their Achilles.
But I'm just saying the Warriors are like death in transition, whereas Miami, their threes weren't falling in some games, they were falling in others. If you give Clay and Steph open threes in transition, you're in big trouble.
Okay, fair. I mean, I don't want to compare the shooters that Miami has with
all I'm saying is I think the turnover battle is going to be the number one factor in this series.
I think that's very fair. I think it's the most fair thing you've ever said in your life.
Wow. All right, Chris, let's get a prediction. Celtics, Warriors, who is going to win and in how many games?
I got Celtics in 7. I think we're sort of well, not weird, but someone in this podcast thinks little of the Celtics. And listen, I'm a Knicks fan. I don't want to be rooting for the Celtics, but the way I see it, I think the Celtics have momentum going into this series against the Warriors. They have the offensive capabilities to keep up with them, and they're also on it defensively. So I got the Celtics.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Warriors. I just think they have been here before. I think their speed is going to be a really important factor. And again, turnover battle, I just have not seen Boston take care of the ball enough. They've also been banged up. We've seen Smart miss a couple of games. Horford, all these guys. I just think that's going to be really important. Clay's coming off a 32-point game in his last game. If he's healthy and he looks good for, let's say 4 of these 6 or 7 games, I think they're in a great spot. I think the Warriors are going to win the NBA championship in the 6 games.
Tell us why you're also rooting for the Warriors, Steve.
So when sports betting went open in January, I wanted to put in, 25 of these fake bucks on Warriors plus 550 to win the championship. And I always felt like it was going to be them or Phoenix, and Phoenix imploded, and I don't see why Golden State can't now. So I feel like I'm in a win-win situation. Either we're going to get a great finals that Boston's going to pull out and guys like Tatum and Brown are going to win their first NBA championship, or I'm going to win some money. So either way, I win.
Fair enough.
All right, Chris, let's move on to the losers of the conference finals. Let's start with Dallas. I just think they're in an impossible spot with Jalen Brunson. He played great in these playoffs, 21 points a game on 46.5% shooting. The 3 looked good. He took over in games when Luka wasn't around, but now he's an unrestricted free agent since he was a 2nd-round pick. And Chris, we talked about their options in free agency, but to me, this team needs to get better. And they're going to have to pay, Brunson $20+ million a year to keep him. So they might actually get worse this summer.
Well, I think what I'm going to say is probably not what Brunson's agent wants to hear. And I think the Mavericks should not prioritize him. I think they should take a swing after Zach LaVine, Miles Turner, and then consider Brunson, because I don't think Brunson is that complementary piece that Luka needs, as great as he was in the playoffs. And listen, if you have to lose him, you'll lose him. But I'm of the belief that the Mavericks are probably better off moving on without him.
It's just a very dangerous situation because the Mavericks have played in this free agent game before and they've lost. They tried to do Dwight Howard, DeAndre Jordan, Chris Paul, and, they're 0 for whatever that number is. And so if you're Dallas, can you really tell Brunson, hey, by the way, like, we like you a lot. We'll give you the money if a Zach LaVine doesn't come here, if we can't trade for a Miles Turner. So they're in a really tricky spot because free agency goes so quick. By the, day 3 or 4, half of or more is dried up. So yes, you got to find out if you can upgrade on Brunson, but also you got to make sure that if you can't, you could pivot to Brunson very quickly. And I don't know if that can happen. There's going to be a ton of suitors for Brunson. I've heard Detroit is going to be linked to him, especially if they don't wind up getting a point guard with the 5th pick in the draft. We've heard the Knicks are going to be in on him. They were scouting him in one of these early games against Utah. So they're just in a tough situation because you're either overpaying Brunson to keep the same team together, or you're going to let, your second best player walk without really being able to, replace him. So obviously a LaVine would be a home run, but if they can't get that, I think they're in big trouble.
I don't know. I don't know if you're necessarily in big trouble without Brunson if you're the Mavericks. I think the Mavericks are going to be a situation certain players are going to be like, and if Brunson leaves, that might just mean that Spencer Dinwiddie gets an outsized role, a bigger role next year. I don't know, man. I don't think it's the end of the world if they don't have Brunson.
I mean, I just don't. I mean, where would this team be this year without Jalen Brunson? I don't think they go to the conference finals.
I mean, probably not, but
I mean, all of a sudden, if
like
Jalen Brunson isn't there in the first round and Luka misses the first 3 games, do they even get past Utah? I don't know. It remains to be seen. But going to Miami, I think they're an even tougher spot, Chris, right? Because you have Kyle Lowry, who just looked old this year, and he's got a 3-year, $85 million contract, 2 years left of that. I don't know how they can really move on from him, and I don't really know how they can improve without getting his money off the books, which I don't think they could do. So I think they're in trouble. And you saw Jimmy Butler. He gave it everything he had, 150%. I don't think you can ask for more from him next year. So unless Lowry's getting in a time machine and going back to 28-year-old Kyle Lowry, I don't really see how this team gets much better.
And I think that's the most challenging part if you're Miami. Where do you go from here? Right. And you alluded to the reasons why. And I'm just also, who would be the guy that would come in Miami to even like compliment someone like Jimmy Butler,
I mean, they're all capped out already. So it has to be you're moving Lowry out. So maybe it becomes like I don't even know what makes sense for them. You're not going to trade Lowry for a Westbrook or a John Wall type. That doesn't really make sense for Miami. I think the hope is that he just, at 37 years old, is just a better player next year. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But Chris, I think Miami really overachieved this year. I don't think they get this far next year.
Miami is like a hard team to gauge because they also battle a lot of injuries during the regular season and even in the playoffs, right? The one thing I will say about the Heat is that you can never count them out. So we're over here mulling about what roster moves they need to make. But if the Heat were a little bit healthier, if Kyle Lowry give a little bit more, maybe this is a different conversation. I have to ask before we move on. Did Jimmy Butler make a mistake taking that 3?
No, I don't think he did. I think after that long grueling series, I think he was just exhausted and he thought, I'm just so wiped. I don't know if I can even get to the rim and get him a good shot. I could probably, take them by surprise right now with this 3, which he was wide open. He's not a great 3-point shooter. If they had taken a timeout, I would have preferred him going to the basket, but they were in transition and he thought, I have a wide open shot. I'm going to take it. And I don't think anybody can blame him for it. It's not the shot I would have wanted for him, But at the same time, if that goes in, which it very well could have, they win the series. And we're talking about Jimmy Butler as a all-time performance kind of thing.
I mean, he hit the front of the rim. Like he was right there.
It was right there. Like we're making this, like people are making it seem like this was like
An
John
airball.
Wall
Yeah.
or Russell Westbrook pulling up like that. Like Jimmy hit some shots. He hit some open. You know, they had all their guys back. I mean, Al Horford had a great series defensively in the post. So I don't love the shot, but I can't kill the shot.
And we have a chat with somebody, one of our good friends, Mitch. He kept trying to like raise up an issue with Jimmy going to the basket, but you know, it's Al Horford. Like Al Horford's not a scrub, right? He's not going to just let Jimmy Butler go to the basket. Like it's
I would have preferred if he went to the basket, but I can't kill him for what he did. He has
for
an
sure,
open shot.
for sure. And then I think one of the other disappointing aspects, you have Duncan Robinson on the bench, rotting away with those what $40+ million.
So I read something really interesting about this. I wanted to talk to you about. So his contract is 5 years, $90 million.
Oh,
okay.
90. Wow. Okay.
But the last 10 million only is guaranteed if three things happen. One, the Heat win an NBA championship in that season. And in that same season, he needs to average 25 or more points. 25 or more minutes in the playoffs. He did not do that. And then he needs to play 70 or 75 plus games in the regular season. He did that one. So not only for him to get all that money, do they have to win the whole thing, but he's got to be a major contributor to that. So it really comes down to a 5-year, $80 million deal, which is like slightly less than what the Nets gave Joe Harris. I can't kill them for that. And if he was back to what he was 2 years ago, he's a major threat. And I think he just got out of rhythm and they couldn't trust him. And maybe they get him back going next year with a Strus and with other guys like that. And that becomes another shooter they could use to get themselves back to the conference finals.
But how sweet would it have been for Strus and the Heat to beat the Celtics? I don't know if you guys know, but Strus was on the Celtics. Was it Celtics before the season started, right?
Yes.
Minicamp?
Yeah.
And he was the last cut.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been sweet.
That would have been sweet for sure. That was a great series, though. It was a weird series. Teams were blowing each other out on the road. It was very strange.
I remember every other night when there was a game, I would ask you, "Oh, who do you think wins tonight?" And you were almost better off like doing whatever the other person wasn't doing. Like I remember you said, "Oh, the Celtics are winning," and I went the Heat, and they won, and vice versa.
Well, congratulations to you on that. Let's get to our final thoughts right after this. All right, Chris, final thoughts time. We've been hearing reports that OG Anunoby of the Raptors might be on the trade block. I don't really get this. We have different opinions on him, but he's 24 years old. He's got 2 years at about $18 million a year left on his deal, then a $19.9 million player option for 2025. Chris, he's a two-way guy on a good team. What are they thinking here? Because they're usually smarter than most.
I mean, I think the Raptors see what everybody with basketball knowledge is probably seeing, that he probably is what he is. Like, to me, he's not really, I think, what's his name? The rookie with the Celtics, either with the Raptors.
Scotty Barnes.
Scotty Barnes sort of made him a little bit replaceable, because I mean, although I do love about the Raptors that they always tend to find these gems and maximizes the most out of these players. I think Anunoby is what he is,
I mean, look, to me, the only issue with Anunoby is something you brought up before the show. It's just he just hasn't been healthy. I mean, he's missed half the season in the last 2 years, but you're talking about a 24-year-old wing in a league starved by wings. You just saw Mikal Bridges get, a max deal, and like he's making 18 million a year. He's a bargain. I think his best offense is ahead of him. He's a great defender. He's had big playoff moments. I just don't get why you trade him.
Great play. Like he has that one 3-pointer. Is there anything else?
He was on the championship team, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, he wasn't the biggest contributor to that team. Obviously, I think he
I
was
just
like
think
a
I think within the context of the Raptors, he's redundant, which is crazy to say.
Oh, he was actually hurt during that entire playoff run. So let's scratch that from the record. But the bottom line is, I just think he's whoops, he's a guy who I think his best basketball is ahead of him, and those are the guys I want to trade for.
You love OG. Like, I remember at the beginning of the season, you thought he was going to be a defensive player of the year candidate.
I did. Did I say that, or was that most improved? I think I said him for.
I mean, it could have been either one, but
I said for most improved. I didn't think
neither happened.
Defensive player of the year is tough because like it usually goes to bigs. I think I picked Bam. And
that makes sense.
Yeah. And Bam just missed too many games. If not, he would have had it. But OG last year, 17 points a game, 5.5 rebounds, good shooting from 2 and 3. And I keep saying it over and over, but I just think his best basketball is ahead of him. So we'll be interested to see how that plays out. You're hearing Toronto involved in Rudy Gobert conversations. Like if I'm Utah and I could trade Rudy Gobert and a pick for OG, I think I hit a home run. I think that's an amazing trade that really changed the dynamic of that team. Utah needs a perimeter defender, a wing defender next to Mitchell more than any other team in the entire league. So to be able to have that and trade Gobert's giant contract, I think will be amazing for them. We'll see how that plays out. I personally would love to put him next to RJ Barrett. I don't know what that trade would look like. Maybe you trade the 11th pick and something else. But again, I just have a hard time believing Toronto's going to give up on this kid right now. I don't really get why they would do that. He's coming off his best season, for sure. Speaking of weird rumors, Kevin Durant apparently has not talked to the Nets front office since the end of the season. And now you're hearing talk that they're just not going to give Kyrie his max, the 4 years, 180 something million dollars, 4 years, $190 million. What is going on with them and how do you see this playing out?
I think it really depends on how they handle the Kyrie situation. Because I don't know if Kevin Durant really has like a strong motivation to stay in Brooklyn. And I think the whole Kyrie situation is making everything much worse. So depending on how they handle that, I think really determines Kevin Durant's next move. But isn't he under contract for like another year, 2 years?
Durant just signed his extension before the season. He was the only one of the three to do so. I think he'll be there, but if you let Kyrie walk and you don't sign and trade him for something else, you're talking about, what, in my opinion, a team that's going to be battling for the playoffs the whole year, just like they were this year. And Durant's going to get tired of that, and they're going to have to flip him sooner rather than later. This thing's a disaster. You have to give Kyrie his money, and I'd be so mad doing it.
I wonder if Dallas is a team that would take a look at Kyrie.
Sign and trade for Brunson. Double sign and trades. Who has to give up more in that deal?
I think the Nets do. But I think if the Nets could trade someone like Claxton, Kyrie, I mean, you throw in Brunson, you throw in Reggie Bullock, you throw in
So basically like the Nets minus Simmons and Durant for Dallas minus Luka. Just everybody's role players are just switching sides, and we'll just see how it plays out.
Basically.
I mean, I've heard worse. So I would like to see that. I think if I'm Sean Marks and Brooklyn, if I can find a way to trade Kyrie for something that can help me without making Durant mad, I would do it. And again, without making Durant mad is the most important part of that conversation.
To be honest with you, if I'm the Nets, I think I try to, as crazy as this sounds, I think you try to build around Ben Simmons.
Let's hear why. Let's hear more about that.
The reason being that if you have Kevin Durant, there's pressure to go for a title now, right? Are you a title team with Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, and maybe Kyrie Irving?
According to Vegas, yes. Vegas still thinks they're like the second greatest odds of any team next year, which I think is crazy, but go on.
Okay, so take that into consideration, right? If Kevin Durant is upset, with the team, then this is all over. So maybe a way to get ahead of that is offloading Kevin Durant and getting as many pieces around Ben Simmons. This is a far-fetched thing. I just thought of it right now, but like you're not going to tell me there's a way this devolves in such a way that like the Nets are like stuck with Ben Simmons.
I mean, what a turn of events from 3-4 months ago where they were the title favorite with Harden, Durant, and Irving. And all of a sudden it's like, maybe you have to build around Ben Simmons, who, by the way, has still not played any basketball. And there's no evidence to me that he's ready to go. You know, he just had the back surgery and he's still suing the Sixers. And I don't want to say, you know, he was not healthy. He was healthy when he wasn't because he had surgery. But at the same time, how do we get him focused on basketball again is something that I don't know how they get that done.
I think with people in general, I think you should give them deadlines. I think take the summer to get fully healthy, right? Mentally, physically, whatever it is. But at the start of training camp, you need to be there. That's it. This is
right. And, you know, we also forget, like, this is a guy who melted down during the playoffs. This isn't just a one-year injury thing. This is a guy who, for years in the playoffs, showed he cannot be a go-to scorer, who makes max money. And the idea of me trading Kevin Durant to build around this guy is one of the worst ideas I've ever heard. But again, you know, they may not have a choice. So I don't blame you for saying it, because like if Durant's not talking to them, you may be right, and let's get out in front of it and blow this thing up. If I'm blowing this thing up, I'm trading Ben Simmons too. I don't want to deal with him now, you know, and build around Ben Simmons. I would just be like, we're thundering this up and we're going to take 30 draft picks and, you know, something like that where nobody can fire me because I have draft picks until 2030, you know, something like that. But again, these topics for the offseason are going to make this amazing. I think this is going to be one of the best off seasons we've had in a long time. I think it's going to be fireworks from draft night until, you know, July 4th, basically. And I can't wait to see how it plays out.
Yeah, me too. And I'm obviously really interested to see what the Knicks do with the draft, what they do with the offseason. And like if they plan to upgrade anytime soon or get a point guard, maybe. I just want our team to improve so we can be in this conversation in the NBA Finals one day.
Yeah, I was like, which conversation? The one about blowing up your team? Because we're close to that. But that's going to do it for us here on the All Hoops podcast. Thank you for listening or watching us on YouTube. We'll be back next week to discuss more NBA Finals and any other NBA rumors that come up.
Bye, everyone.